Bill Hayes. I am the chairman of the Danvers Municipal Light Board. And we're commencing our meeting of the Danvers Municipal Light Board. To start the meeting, I will read the script for remotely conducted open meetings. And the script is as follows. As a preliminary matter, this is Bill Hayes, chairman of Municipal Light Board. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mike Landers?
Here.
Eric Mitchell? Eric is not on the call at this time. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. David Lane?
Here.
Peter Korpusik?
Present.
Angelica Medina? She was on, okay. Clint Allen? Clint is on. Was on, there he is, yeah. Jason Small?
Here.
Stephanie Doherty is here. And Jeff Ely? Here. And we will go back to Eric Mitchell.
Here. I am here.
Eric, thank you. I will now read the introduction to remote meetings. Good morning. This open meeting of the Municipal Light Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Municipal Light Board is convening remotely via the WebEx application as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Meeting materials. All supporting materials have been provided to members of this body, are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Meeting business ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, Please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, we have established an email for public comment. That is publiccomments@danversma.gov. This email address is also posted with the agenda and shown online with the streaming of this meeting. Residents will email comments and they will be provided read out loud after staff has confirmed their name and address. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. That completes the reading of the governor's procedure. I would like to add just a couple comments for today's meeting and how we conduct the business. This meeting has several complex topics, and I would like to request that each participant remember that we have people watching on cable access television who will not be as familiar with the content as we are. And so when you make comments or presentations, please include a description or setting of the scene so that folks watching on television can follow along. And when we use acronyms, it's usually a good idea to explain what they are. With that, I will now take the meeting to the agenda. The first item on the agenda following the reading of that material is to receive public comments. Clint Allen, do we have any public comments at this time received prior to the meeting?
We have no public comments at this time, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Clint. Stephanie, would you please make a note that following the Utilities Director's comments, item number 10 on the agenda, that I would like to request if we have received any comments during the meeting.
I will.
Thank you. With that, we will now close public comments and move to item number 3, accepting the minutes from the November 24th meeting. To open the discussion, I would like to hear a motion to accept the meetings, following which we will then have discussion. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes from either member, Mike or Eric?
So
I move. Second.
Thank you, Eric and Mike, for moving and second. I will now open discussion on the minutes as submitted. Eric, do you have any comments on the minutes as submitted and amended with one comment by Stephanie?
I do not. No comments.
Thank you, Eric. Mike?
No comments.
Okay. I have no comments. I will now go through the meeting members and request if they have any comments. David Lane?
No comments, Bill.
Thank you. Stephanie?
No.
Clint?
I'm all set, Bill. Thanks.
Thank you. Jeff?
No comments.
Thank you. Jason Small? Any comments on the minutes as submitted?
No comment.
Thank you. Peter Korpusik?
No comments, Bill.
Okay. We have no comments on the minutes as submitted. I will therefore close the comments portion, and we will now move to a roll call vote on acceptance of the minutes, the motion currently on the floor. Mike, how do you vote?
Yay.
Eric, how do you vote?
I abstain.
You abstain, okay? And I will vote yay. And so the minutes pass with 2 yays and 1 abstention. We will now move to the next item on the agenda, the October 2020 financial report. This report will be delivered by Peter Korpusik. Peter, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, as you stated, we have the October 31st, 2020 financial statements in front of us at the present time. If we start at the top of the first sheet, which is the revenue, profit and loss statement, as we can note, our revenues, which is from the sales of kilowatt hours, is up 3% from where it was last year at this time. If we look at domestic sales, we can see that the domestic sales are up almost 12% from where they were last year. And that is in big regard why, we're ahead this year. Our small businesses, as you can see, in our municipal sales are down, and all of these different categories, the small businesses are down because of COVID, the school buildings are down because of COVID, and our residential sales are up because, as we all know, a lot of people have been working from home. So one downside has been that some of the businesses are down, but we've more than made up for that through October. If we look at the second section, as I've mentioned in the past, about halfway down that second section, interest income is down by $250,000 at this point in time. As we all know, because of the financial implications nationwide, the Federal Reserve has lowered the interest rates to between 0 and 25 basis points. As I've mentioned, the money that the division has is kept in municipal investments, and therefore it's done that way so that when the interest rates go up, we are able to quickly reap the benefit of interest rising. On the other hand, when the Federal Reserve cuts the interest rates, these MMDT accounts are quick to experience the downside of that. So we are down on that. But having said that, in general, if we look at our grand total for revenue, we're at the same spot that we were last year, more or less. If we go to the bottom part of the first page and we look at our purchase power costs, which start from line 555 through 570, through October in the general ledger, we're down $1.25 million from where we were last year, and that represents 7%. And as I mentioned last month, and I'll mention it again this time, the first three sections of the power cost, which is the purchase power, the system controlled load dispatch, and other purchase power, that's down $1.6 million or 11.5%. Transmission, on the other hand, is still higher than it was last month or last year. The increase is somewhat smaller than it was last month, but the cost to bring power to this section of the country, it is higher and continues to be higher. In general, our expenses are in line. There isn't really anything there that, in my mind, stands out. Things are less, as we mentioned last month. The way because we had to be on, some of the linemen were home, some of the staff was home during different times, and we had to go to a different type of work. Some of the line items you will see are less than they were last year, and that's because of the way the crews were dispatched and did different things than they normally would if we had a full construction season during the spring and through the summer and fall. If we go to page 4, Mr. Chairman, we're on the balance sheet. And if we look at cash, which is always a topic most people like to hear about, between our reserve funds and our operational funds, we've got $2.1 million more than we did last year. And if we look at the operational cash, that's up $1.7 million. Again, the work program that was accomplished this year was, we had to do things that were dictated by the COVID so that we could keep everybody safe, and the major programs that we normally would have done weren't necessarily done. So we would expect the cash to be up, and as we get back to normal, we would expect the work program to continue as it has for many, many years. And we'll need that cash to buy the supplies that we need to accomplish those goals. If we go to page 5 and we see the depreciation fund cash in the middle of the page, again, similar story, Mr. Chairman. That's up $1.3 million. Again, because of COVID, we certainly weren't able to build the capital projects that we had planned and as much as we wanted to. So that is grown a little bit. And in total, at this point in time, we've got $21.3 million, which is $3.5 million higher than it was last year. If we look at the top of page 5, Mr. Chairman, we've got customer accounts receivable there, account 142. So even though we're selling just as much electricity, a concern that we have here at the business is that we're collecting that money and that, we're not just selling it and not getting the funds for it. And as we can see, the accounts receivable is up, $53,000 or approximately 2%. Given that we weren't doing our normal shutoffs like we did because of governor's statements and DPU regulations that control us from what we can do in that area. We didn't have our normal program, but I look at those numbers, Mr. Chairman, and I see we're happy with those numbers, that we weren't shutting people off, but yet we haven't had a sizable increase in what is owed to us compared to last year. So given that, Mr. Chairman, as I've said for the last couple of months during the pandemic, we're profitable, we're liquid. Some of the programs of the construction programs might not be where they were, but from a financial point of view, I think we're doing well.
Thank you, Peter. That completes your report.
Yes, it does, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We will now take comments from the other board members. Mike, do you have any questions? Oops, I'm sorry. Eric, do you have any questions or comments for Peter?
I do not.
Okay, thank you, Eric. And Mike signaled that he does not have any. We will now move by roll call to each of the members in the meeting to see if they have any comments or questions on Peter's report. David Lane?
No questions or comments.
Thank you. Clint Allen?
No comments or questions, Bill.
Thank you. Jason Small?
No comments or questions. Thank you.
Jeff Ely?
No comments or questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Stephanie Doherty?
No comments or questions?
Okay. Peter, I just had one comment. I think, again, an excellent report, clearly a great grasp of the finances of the business. Would you just comment briefly on where we are for profitability for the year so far? You normally do that. I think you forgot to do it this time, or I missed it.
Mr. Chairman, if we go to page 2 at the bottom, at this point in time, we're profitable. We've got $4.7 million, which is, considerably higher than last year. And again, that's higher simply because we would have had a lot more maintenance projects going on that would have increased our expenses. But given the nature of what happened this year, our expenses are lower. So we're profitable.
Okay, thank you, Peter. And I would like to also include a shout out to Clint for the renegotiation on the cost side. Our revenues are about the same and our costs are down. So nice job negotiating on the price of the purchase power there. With that, I will close discussion and I will entertain a motion to accept the financial report.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Eric. Assuming there is no further discussion, if someone please yell if there is, I will now move to a roll call vote and we'll take just a moment. Are there any objections to moving to the vote from anyone?
Nope.
Hearing none, we'll move to the roll call vote. Mike Landers,
Yay.
Eric Mitchell,
Yay.
and I also vote yay. The motion to accept the financial report is passed unanimously. And again, kudos to Peter for another excellent report. Thank you, Peter. I will now move to the next item on the agenda, which is the purchase power report and recommendation from Clint Allen. Clint, you have the floor.
Thank you, Bill. Morning, everybody. So we're here. We're finally at the end of 2020, which I don't know personally. Like we'd never get here, but I'm happy to say we're all here and we're closing out the power supply cost for it. So with the first graph, I kind of changed the format for the year report on the front page. We can see we started 2020 with about $1.2 million in the over-under balance. We had determined a rate and put that rate into effect February 1st of this year for the purchase power and fuel adjustment charge. Ideally, land the end of the year at 500,000. And if you can see beginning of the year, January, February, March, April, May, June, we're tracking pretty well towards that. And right around the middle of the summer, our rates started going up, and our power supply costs actually, as Peter just kind of touched on in the financials, power supply costs went down. And Bill, thank you for the accolades on the negotiation. Part of that, but because of that, as you can see through the summer, we actually began to collect more money in that over/under fund. With the costs and revenues closed out through October, I anticipate we will be landing at the end of 2020 somewhere around 2.1 million in the over/under fund. With that said, we can go to the second page, the second graph. So this is the power supply cost and revenue forecast for 2021. We anticipate, well, we're doing the load forecast for the year. We looked at 2017, 18, and 19, averaged that out. We decided to leave an asterisk next to 2020s, and we'll kind of go back to, hopefully, as Peter mentioned also, we're getting back to, business as usual, hopefully 2021. So that's how we set our forecast for the year and revenues. If we don't do anything to the the floating power fuel adjustment charge, we'll begin the year at 2.1 million, and we anticipate that we would end the year at approximately 1.65 million. As stated in our policy, we strive to hit that $500,000 mark. So in order to accomplish that, the recommendation would be to start the year January 1, 2020, with a 6.8% PPNFA reduction, all rate classes. That would bring the residential, the current charge is 5.669 cents. That would bring the 2021 charge down to 5.28 cents kilowatt hour. And all other customer classes would go down from 5.922 to 5.52 cents per kilowatt hour. So that would be the recommendation. We would, conservatively hope to track closer to that $500,000 objective by the end of 2021. So at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, before I open it up, thank you, Clint. Excellent report. Before I open it up to comments and questions from the other board members and members on the call, I have a couple of questions myself. First, could you explain why we use a target of 500,000 and what are the requirements on us to return any monies above that to the ratepayers by lowering the rate, so the people on the watching on television could understand?
Sure. So as we've touched on, in the past, the power supply costs are a direct pass-through. So DPU regulations don't allow the utility to, retain any of those surplus earnings. We anticipate how much power we're going to sell in 1 year, so we set the rate according to cover those costs. At the end of the year, as has been the case and is the case this year, we've actually over-collected from the power supply charge for what we actually spent on power for that year. We set a buffer of $500,000. We don't really want to go negative in that account. We don't want to carry, a liability into the next year and be forced to, potentially have kind of a rate to cover any kind of deficit. So, a $500,000 target into the calendar year, so we can at least carry in to the next year to sort of smooth out those monthly charges.
Okay, thank you, Clint. That was a great clarification. Eric, do you have any questions or comments for Clint?
I do. This is the one I usually get in on. It's always nice when we have no rate change, and I talk about that in every meeting. And so to have a recommended decrease, my question would be, when was the last time we had a decrease for historical context? Do we know?
I believe it was actually, I can't remember, it was in 2018, I believe, quarter four.
And so
I'm sorry, this is Bill again. David, do you recollect? I was thinking it was the summer of 19.
I believe Bill's right. We did a modest decrease to this account last year, a year ago, December. We were able to drop it slightly due to the decreased cost of power.
And Eric, to further expound on that, we were able to keep that lowered rate for my recollection is about 6 months, and then we had to go up somewhat, not completely back to where we were. So we had a reduction close to a year ago, and it lasted about 6 months, and we did have to go up a little. Do you have any further questions, Eric?
My other question is just around messaging. When everyone loves their rate to go down and no one wants their rate to go up. And so I saw this, and my thought is, so when I get my bill, as a consumer, I get my bill, and I open it up, it's great when it goes down or when it stays the same. It's bad when it goes up, but I always have the same complaint, hypothetically. Why is my bill so high? That's the standard hue and cry. And so I just am mindful that anytime there's a rate adjustment, that we're very careful about. You don't want to necessarily hype it up too much, because then people will get focused on it and complain if it adjusts. But I don't want to miss the opportunity to recognize the great work in keeping rates low and reducing rates as well. So there's a balance in there, and I just offer that up for your consideration. Don't lose the opportunity to take credit for it, but don't oversell it so folks, are mad if you have to adjust the other way. So for what it's worth.
Okay, thank you, Eric. If you have no further comments, I will move to Mike Landers. Mike?
I think, Dave, did you want to jump in on that quick?
I just, thank you, Eric. We are, Bill's brought up with us, and we're keeping in mind how to best message any changes that we make in the rate as we go into the beginning of the year. I do need to caution the board. We have a discussion later on about the customer charge in the operational side of the budget, which isn't quite so rosy. From our study, we know that as the power supply. So there's going to be a give and take there. But once our recommendation will be, once we figure out the customer charge and what's going to happen on that side, then we'll put together a complete press release and a message out there. Part of that message will be the difference between the cost of power in Danvers and if you lived in an investor-owned utility company, which is almost a 28% decrease. If we lived in Beverly or a different town with the grid or Eversource, it just will also make sure our message includes the benefit of that to Danvers to own this company.
One more thing I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you, David. Mike, do you have any other comments, questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, to Eric one, again, I think the key thing always with this one is to sort of mirror both a little bit what Dave was saying and certainly what Eric was saying is that last graph we always see on that form, which is the the 750 kilowatt residential bill, where that rates compared to the other folks, because that's really, yeah, I think Bill's absolutely right. We get lost sometimes in the weeds and the minutia of the varying components to the rate and how complex sometimes this can be, where we're sort of washed over by the electric world, and so we understand a lot more than the sort of the general user or customer that we have. But that last graph really drives home, I think, the important component of what we do here, which is keep that bill at that very low end of that graph. And we can accept maybe a little bit lower from Middleton and Peabody for varying reasons, but it's really about how do we compare with National Grid and Eversource in terms of the overall rate, and we do a fantastic job in terms of that. I think that's always the consistent message we've got, as well as the fact, I mean, I had, for about 15 seconds this morning, we lost power. And the only reason I know that is because the microwave clock was blinking when I get out of the shower. So, that you look at what we had for a storm, you get the best service of any place and we get a really low rate. So that's ultimately the message I always try to send across to folks. But other than that, great job, Clint. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I have an additional comment. I would like to again thank Clint. I think that was a great explanation and certainly answered my request to kind of set the stage for folks. And Eric and Mike also, I think, great clarifying comments. And I will now move to the meeting participants to see if they have any additional questions or comments for Clint. David Lane?
No comments, thank you.
Okay, Clint, do you have anything you wish to add to your report following the board comments?
Oh, no, I think I'm all set, Bill. Thanks.
Thank you, Clint. Jason Small?
No comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Jeff Ely?
I have one additional comment that I wanted to just add, that Clint and I are going to be working on, per the board's recommendation, an explanation, like a visual explanation of the customer bill, and try to get that for the new year once we implement any changes in January, and kind of do something maybe like a whiteboard video or something that will engage the customers to better explain how their bill is broken out.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Peter Korpusek?
No comments.
Thank you, Peter. Stephanie Doherty?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this point, with the discussion closed, we would now move to hear a motion to approve the BP and FA rate. So let me first ask, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Eric. Here a second. Mike, thank you. I'd like to add one comment. I had sent an email to all the folks suggesting that we defer this discussion until we follow with the rate discussion. And David clarified for me that the purchase power is strictly a pass-through, which I did know, but felt it ought to be held in context or in light of the rate discussion to follow. And so I would like to suggest that we hold the vote until we have completed the rate discussion, which is agenda item number 9. And I would like to ask Eric and Mike if that is okay with you two to hold the vote until following the rate discussion. Eric?
That's fine.
Mike?
Perfectly fine.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to accept and approve the change in rate downward. We are going to hold the vote on that until after the rate discussion at item number 9 on the agenda. So we will now move to item number 6 on the agenda, which is the Energy Efficiency Program Review by Jeff Ely. Jeff, you have the floor.
Thank you, Bill. So 2020 was an interesting year for energy efficiency. A lot of program changes and a lot of adjustments in light of the pandemic and how we responded to that. So as you know, a lot of outreach programs and efficiency programs depend on going into people's homes, doing energy audits and that sort of thing. So we had to make some adjustments. I'll start off I'll kind of just go through from a high level, and then if you guys have any questions, you can ask me towards the end. But I'll just go through the report, and I'll start with our demand response program. We at this in summer of 2020, we didn't do the temporary generator rental. After exploring some of the options for renting the generator and for some of the regulations around temporary generator rentals, we deemed that as well as the capacity and transmission savings, we determined that it wasn't financially sound this year to do a temporary generator rental. And so the cost of the rental was going up, as well as the cost of the price of capacity was going down. So most of our savings come from that capacity portion, and the cost benefit just wasn't there. So we went ahead and we still had our commercial demand response program with our 8 or 9 participants. 6 participants, sorry. And we still had some participation. It was lower due to COVID, but you can see that through the capacity and transmission savings, we saved about $15,000. Still using Tangent as our energy management provider for those savings, using their AMP platform. The big thing that
Jeff, could I just ask a question at this point? Is that roughly $15,000 savings? Is that in line with your expectations? Do we consider that to be a good performance, poor, or about on target?
It's about on target with where we were last year. It's a slightly lower due to the fact that some of the participants had much lower occupancy in the summer. So some of our participants are the North Shore Community College and the schools, and they had lower occupancy, so they weren't in their buildings as much. So the savings just weren't as high because they weren't in there. But it wasn't as low as I anticipated. I actually anticipated a bit lower, honestly, just because of the pandemic. I didn't think it would be on people's minds. I didn't think that they would be participating, but there was some participation. So I was encouraged about that. Now that we can engage with it, we're going to continue to engage with our customers and work with Tangent and try to add on a few customers for 2021 and hopefully increase those numbers.
And these are the small set of customers that are our largest consumers, is that correct?
Correct. Yep. Correct.
Okay, thank you. Please continue. I apologize for the interruption.
No worries. So the biggest, for the demand response program, the biggest change was we kind of got rid of the residential demand response program, the behavioral program. And so we implemented a smart thermostat program with Tangent. So if you purchase a Nest thermostat or a EcoBeat thermostat, oh no, I think it was all Nest. It was just all Nest thermostats. You would enroll in their program, which would, during the peak times, lower your thermostat if you had central AC. And by participating in the program, you would get a $60 initial Visa gift card and then a $20 Visa gift card at the end of the year. So we offered an incentive for people to participate in that program. In a short period between, I think it was August and December, we enrolled 71 thermostats in 42 homes, and so we had 42 sign-up bonuses, and that was about in line with what we thought, and we aim to increase that this year, and hopefully have we hope to have about 100 participants next year, and so that is a big change from our from our behavioral program where we ask people to change their behavior during peak times. This is more of a tangible, it actually changes their thermostat slightly as long as they sign up and agree to all the conditions. If you keep on going down, these are just some of our stats or data around appliance rebates. We continued to do our standard appliance rebates, central ACs, ductless mini splits, programmable thermostats, refrigerators, that sort of thing. So you can see we spent a total of $22,915 on rebates and did approximately 127 rebates. This is data through October, so we still have November, December data to add. We'll roughly see probably around $25,000 total in rebates. If you keep on going, we didn't do as many in-home residential energy audits just because of COVID-19, but E&E, who does the audits, has been offering remote audits. So they conduct the audit with the homeowner via FaceTime or Google Hangouts, and they go through with their energy advisor, similar to what MassSave does with IOU customers. You can see trending down a little bit this year, but that's due to the COVID-19. I expect there to be more residential audits in 2021. The other program that we signed up for, and Bill alluded to this at the start of the meeting, was the My Energy X online audit. And so they do kind of a virtual online soft audit that they offer, like it's a software, all online software as a service program, and a marketplace that provides customers with the recommendations from the audit, the ability to purchase and get energy items like light bulbs and thermostats, even electric vehicle charging. So that's an additional service that we added for our customers, and we hope that we get more signups for that. That's all can be found on our website. You keep on scrolling, page 3, we're into the electric vehicle program. We launched this program in 2019, and we are encouraging people to stay informed on electric vehicles. If they are interested in electric vehicles, reach out to our Danvers Drives Electric advisors through Energy New England to provide information, get buying options, work with dealers, find out what's available out there. In line with that, we've installed public electric vehicle charging stations in the Hobart Street public lot, as well as the Elm Street public lot across from Town Hall. We also have purchased two fleet vehicles now, a Chevy Bolt fully electric car and a Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid. And that was just purchased this past fall. So we have those 2 vehicles for our fleet, as well as some charging in the Borough Street lot that we installed last year. You can see that in the public stations, this is like that graph is showing the utilization of the chargers, number of sessions. You can see that we have a total of 62 sessions and $43 in revenue collected. We were expecting to see a large bump in usage during the summer, people parking downtown, going to shopping or going even to Town Hall, but with things closed this summer, we had to kind of curb those expectations. So this also is in line with how I kind of saw, utilization would pan out for 2020. With our continued outreach for electric vehicles, we're continuing to put the word out that there is charging in our downtown area, and we're gonna try to keep pushing that information. I did get some data this past week actually that we have approximately 160 people with either fully electric or plug-in electric cars. So that's actually a lot higher than I thought in Danvers, and so getting the word out to those people, as well as encouraging more people to use electric vehicles and purchase electric vehicles is a goal for 2021. Page 4, you can see a picture of the new Mitsubishi Outlander that we purchased in the fall. And it has a 25 miles of battery range, but can switch to gas engine. It's an all-wheel drive vehicle that's going to be used for operations, for the electric operations. So that's a cool thing that we did. And still on page 4, we're looking at the commercial EV charger rebate pilot program. This year, we decided to partner with Essex Tech on a new project. They were looking to, they did a bunch of, they were awarded some grant money to do electric vehicle charging stations, and we helped them with just getting over the line on those charging stations. They're one of our largest customers, and they work with us on our demand response program. So we thought it would be of our interest to help them install some level 2 chargers and make those chargers available to the public in Danvers. So we provided a $10,000 rebate, pilot rebate for those for them to finish these chargers. And so they did about 4 stations, so it's 8 ports of electric vehicle charging on campus. And as you can see from the pictures, they painted the spots green, and they're available to the public. So if you go on the ChargePoint website and go to the map, they're available there. We plan to continue the program in 2021, and we have a few inquiries from other businesses downtown and in Danvers that are interested in doing EV charging for their business, and then also making that available to the public during off hours. You keep on going to residential, to page 5. Actually, it's page 6, the last page. Just comment briefly on residential solar PV program. We actually this year had a little bit of a resurgence in residential solar interest, and we actually got, I think, 3 applications for residential solar. So we just completed the first one, and it was I think a 5 kW system. But using this rebate program, which is a partnership with Energy New England and the Department of Energy Resources, we're able to offer customers a $2,400 rebate from the utility with a matching funds from the Department of Energy Resources for a total rebate of $4,800. So we've done 2 systems installed now, and we have a 3rd one in the pipeline. I think maybe a 4th one that I've got some interest in. So after not doing any residential PV installations in a couple of years, we've now seen during a pandemic a couple of installs. So the solar rebate program, we're going to continue to do the program in 2021. The program got extended. There's still funding available from the DOER. So we're going to continue the program in 2021, hopefully have a few more installs. And yeah, so that's pretty much the end of the report. Is there any questions?
Okay, Mike, do you have any questions for Jeff?
No, that fantastic as always. A very, very detailed report. The only comment I can make on this one is that my father-in-law, who's 86 or 87, was very impressed with the electric charging station, which is down at the Municipal lot off of Holton Street. He noticed it, and I said, "Well, you going to run out and get a electric car pie?" Oh, no, not quite yet. He hasn't jumped that far yet, but he was very impressed with the charging station. So next step is to get the senior set in electric cars, I guess, for us. So, but that is all.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Eric, do you have any questions or comments for Jeff?
Sure. Comment 1, great stuff, and then 2 questions. My first one is Nest. You mentioned Nest and Ecobee, and the program only deals with Nest. Any reason why just Nest and not? There's so many smart thermostats out there. I can imagine it could be crazy for you, but.
Yeah, so the reason why was we would have really liked it. Originally, when Tangent proposed the program, it was open to any type of thermostat because they were using a 3rd party. But then the 3rd party got purchased by Google, and Google owns Nest. And so the program kind of changed, and now it's all switching to Google Nest. And it's really the only program out there that we know of right now that is offering something similar to how we want to administer the program. So unfortunately, when we were first proposed the program, it was any smart thermostat, Wi-Fi thermostat was available, and now for 2020, end of 2020, 2021, it's now only Google Nest, unfortunately. That's just the way that the Tangent has kind of figured out how to make this work.
Yep, understood. So then my second question is on the solar program, and full disclosure, so I live in one of the condo complexes, and we have all this roof, and I'm always interested and fascinated by how many complexes we have in Danvers, and none of them have solar. It seems like a lot of real estate up there. What is the disconnect between those opportunities and where we are?
For condo complexes, it's a little bit of a trickier thing because you deal with usually like a condo board or some kind of like homeowners association type of thing, and so the building's owned by a group of a lot of different people, and so that's just with IOUs and with when I dealt with solar with National Grid, that's like the biggest challenge is getting past that kind of that hurdle of corralling a bunch of people who own a building. I would say that's the biggest thing. It's not impossible. It's just a little bit of a different model of implementing solar. If your condo association was interested in doing such a project and a developer, the first step would be to talk to a developer, and then we could talk to that entity. So it's really just there's just a lot of different moving parts when doing solar. There aren't as many incentives for a municipality as there are for IOU customers in terms of how that money, how credits and rebates and all that stuff kind of works. It's a little bit of a different beast with the municipality. We do offer net metering, and we do offer rebates, but it's just a little bit of a hurdle
Okay.
in terms of that stuff. It is something that we're willing to. It is possible. It's just we would have to have a discussion with all different parties and that sort of thing.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yep.
If I can just add one quick thing to that, is that we have had negotiations with a couple condo associations, and we can't do it through our traditional net metering program with all your individual meters. Essentially, you don't own the roof. So it would have had to been a full system across the whole development that then comes back to us as a PPA, and then we divide the money up among the whole association. So it has to be at that level, which actually makes the finances perhaps less desirable to some of the individual members. So we've never been able to, so far, never been able to get the numbers to work for the association.
Could I just ask Dave one quick question? I'm sorry, Art. In regards to that, Dave, I know it's ideally we would be looking at trying to add capacity, solar capacity on existing structures. But if we explored the possibility through zoning of adding a provision with, for example, site plan, in which we would at minimum encourage new development to have solar. I don't know if we necessarily would be in a position to want to require it for any number of reasons, but to have that be something that either the planning board or the zoning board through either special permits or site planning would be able to work with applicants, especially fairly large applicants, to try to add a solar component to their new construction?
Sure. So we'll have to look at that language, and I'm trying to think where there's an example of language that we could use to encourage them. It's far, we're going to have to be careful as a fine line, because we're encouraging, say, a business or a development to put solar panels in that then Danvers Electric is going to buy that power. So there's a business relationship there. We want to make sure there's no conflicts, that it's just for the common good. But we'll have to look and see if there's any language in that. I definitely, as long as we don't go over the height restrictions, under zoning, you can do the solar panels. I think that the biggest problem would come in and on a piece, if it was on flat ground, you'd have your setbacks from your property lines, and those things. And I don't think we really want to waive that. I think we'd want to keep those requirements in place and follow those. And so it's, people could do the solar panels. It's just, the land's too valuable for it right now.
As a follow-up, unless I miss my take, the net return for an individual or even a complex is a lower electrical bill, right?
Correct. Yeah, correct. On the larger commercial ones, Eric, when it's a purchase power agreement, that the money, that is simply a financial, such as a Danvers Indoor Sports. They have an electric bill, they pay their electric bill, they have a large solar array, we pay them directly for that power. So it's not a credit in-out kind of thing. It's a full, we take all the power they produce and they pay for anything they use.
And we're finding that the biggest, I think, barrier that kind of these business owners are having is between making the financials work with the solar developer, whoever they're working with. So a lot of the times, these solar developers are going into National Grid or Eversource territories, and they're able to reap benefits that are just not that they have that we can't offer. So the economics change a little bit for a lot of it, actually. So the economics are vastly different for a developer and the customer when looking at a large scale system on a rooftop or ground mount. And so a lot of that has to do with how much we can pay for purchase power based on existing tracks and kind of the market for power. So it's got to be advantageous to us, advantageous to the customer, and advantageous to the developer. So it's got to be kind of a everybody has to kind of win, and that sometimes, most of the time, that doesn't happen. But for Boston Indoor Sports and for 54 Cherry Street, it has worked, and we are in discussion with some other developers right now, and some other commercial customers for systems to be built in the next couple of years. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Jeff, would you just clarify why it doesn't work? Is that because we as a municipal tend to have lower rates, which means there's less money to be returned to the people who are putting it in?
Yeah, correct. And our net metering rate isn't a full retail value of the electricity. If you're doing the net meter, if you're on the net metering 1 rate, it's slightly lower, and so that's about half. So they're, for all the excess generation that they produce that gets credited to their account, it's not worth as much as the original customers that were on net metering, and that's just due to the fact that we need to cover some of the costs to keep the electricity plugged in at their connected at their homes and still be able to effectively have the power on and stand by for their homes whenever they need power, just to keep it part of the grid. So that's typically why. For commercial customers, there's different incentives, and our cost of PPAs is what we can pay them for their electricity is different than how IOUs work with commercial customers.
Wow.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Eric, do you have any further questions for Jeff?
No, I appreciate the very thorough explanation, and I say, I certainly, the reason that I ask is because, my complex is 100% electric, so everything, is electric. I think about electric all day long. My water heater is tracking electric, and I'm looking at kilowatt hours on the new water heater. So it's something that I have been interested in, and my wife pesters me all the time about the question, so I'll follow up with you offline just to answer any more questions I might have. But I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Eric, I mean, anytime. We've been doing a lot more solar stuff these days, so we've been working with developers and kind of figuring that stuff out. So if anybody has any questions for me, happy to have a conversation offline.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
Yep.
Mike, any further?
Yeah, Bill, I just want to channel my inner Stan and thank Eric's condo complex for being fully electric and purchasing a tremendous amount of power from the town of Danvers.
Very good, Mike. Jeff, I would like to add my compliments as well for doing a great job and providing a great report. I had 1 or 2 questions here. On page 2, when you went over the residential savings program, I didn't see any results. Like, you were able to articulate about 15,000 in savings on the large commercial. Were you able to track savings on residential?
We didn't receive a report yet from Tangent because there were still some signups going on at the end of the year. I expect to see a report this in the next couple of weeks just on 2020 data,
Okay.
and I will pass those along.
Okay. The other question I had, I don't know if it's totally appropriate, but why did we purchase a Mitsubishi instead of something from an American car company?
Absolutely, I can answer that question. We would have liked to, and we did explore those options. Mitsubishi offered the only all-wheel drive SUV plug-in hybrid vehicle on the market, and Ford has a front-wheel drive Escape, but Mitsubishi is the only one right now, currently, that offers the all-wheel drive option. And for operations, all-wheel drive was a requirement by the department, so that's why we went that route. So as more vehicles come out, though, we are definitely in tune to the market and we'll try to purchase, a Ford or that sort of thing. So.
Okay, thank you.
The
One
good
last.
news on that bill was that we're able to use a local Danvers dealer for the purchase.
Oh, good. Okay, I think this is the last question I noted here. No, I got one more after this one. I questioned when I saw the $10,000 rebate to Essex Tech for their charging stations. And I put that in the context of, at our public charging stations, we've received about $43, $44 from the use of those stations. And I questioned whether or not that was a wise decision to offer such a large rebate. But I think in your presentation, you already answered my question in that they're a very large customer. They work well with us. We are trying to encourage the use of electric vehicles. And so while on the surface, it may not have appeared to be such a wise decision, I think in the context as you presented it, it does make sense. And unless you have any further comments, I'm satisfied.
No, that would be my main talking point around that. We're also working with Essex Tech on some larger projects that hopefully will come to fruition in 2021. I don't know if I can disclose on the meeting yet, but they're one of our largest customers. They work with us on our demand response program. We hope to have. They're looking to purchase some electric school buses that might become battery assets for the utility. So that's all things that we're working on. So I would say that they're a large customer, one of our key accounts, and that's how we're.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. I had one more. On the last page, the solar solar rebate program requirements. You mentioned at the end the net metering, and apparently there were 7 existing residential installations that were not part of any net metering have been switched to the new net metering tariff. What's the impact on Danvers Electric and those homeowners? Do we see more revenue? Do they see more more rebate? What's the impact of that program?
We have I would have to go back. I would have to go in and look at those accounts starting on January 1st, 2019, because I haven't followed along with those. I don't know if Peter can speak to that, but I actually don't know. I could follow up with additional information on this.
So, Bill, the new net metering program that they got into on those is the one that we use for all of the systems that are coming online. We worked with the board to develop a net metering rate that was both beneficial to the customer and also sustainable for the business model of Danvers Electric. Before, we were paying a full retail rate for those credits, which we couldn't afford. We knew that we could do it as a jumpstart the program. However, if we're paying someone full retail rate and it's costing us operational costs to get it there, it's not a sustainable model. So right now, this rate is good. We want to encourage them to have the panels and use it. It's similar to like us going to buy power from a power plant. So that's how it's designed right now. but we'll continue to look at that net metering rate as we go forward in the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you, David, for clarifying. I actually knew that, but I thought it would be useful to clarify for folks watching on TV. And I guess the answer, I think you've answered it quite well, but the answer is we are now paying those grandfathered customers less. Is that correct? And we're paying them what we pay any new solar installation.
The grandfather, they go that, I believe we put 10, there's 10-year life of their system. And then after that, they would go to the new rate.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Jeff, I would like to say thank you. Great report. Great job. I think you really come on, fairly recently and really taken this and run with it and doing a great job for us. So thank you.
Yep. Hopefully we'll have some new stuff in 2021 and keep your eyes peeled.
Okay. If I'll now go through the attendees and ask if there are any final comments on Jeff's report. Eric?
No further comments. Just great job. Thank you.
Okay. Mike?
The only, and it's sort of a question, but it's really great that we have the relationship, and it sounds like we've really developed a fantastic relationship with the Aggie Voc School. Would it be fair to say that our relationship with the other large school that is in town has not been as productive, or are we still trying to work out with them the same type of relationship and cooperation that we have with the Aggie?
It's more challenging to work with the other large school in town. To get anything that's beneficial to both parties has been very challenging right now, so far.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else?
David, do you have any additional comments or questions?
I'm all set. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Okay. Clint Allen?
I'm all set. Nice job, Jeff.
Okay. Jason Small?
I have no comment. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay. Peter Kopusik?
No comments.
Stephanie Doherty?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. That was item number 6 on the agenda, of which we have 11 items. We've already been going over an hour, and we've got a couple of tough subjects ahead. I'd like to just open it up to the idea, should we plan to take a 5 or 10-minute break at some point, since I anticipate this meeting will go quite long? Do we want to say somewhere around 10? Do we want to take one now, or do we want to try to plow through? I'll open up to anybody to comment.
Yeah.
I'm okay plowing through with it. I mean, we can always turn our video off and
Okay.
leave it at that.
All right. If I don't hear any objections to that, that'll be the strategy. And given that I'm far the oldest person on here, I may be the one to pull the plug momentarily. Okay, we'll now move to item number.
Mine's already gone off twice, so don't.
Okay, we'll now move to item number 7 on the agenda, which is the 2021 draft budget review. And I'm assuming that will be presented by Peter. Is that correct?
Actually, Bill, let me take a crack at just giving the high view, and then we can have Peter and his staff jump in, and Clint. Obviously, I got to think, Clint, Peter, Angelica. Peter also has a staff accountant, Ginny, in his office, who actually, she's the backbone of one of the backbones of our budgets and keeping the models straight, and really drives us all. Behind the scenes, there's columns on who's responsible for every number, how the calcs are done, and it's good that Ginny really drives us. So thanks to all those staff for working hard and putting together a good proposed budget and doing it quickly and under tough conditions. The proposed budget for calendar year 2021 that you have in front of you, the first thing that we need to talk about is our sales, the kilowatt hour sales that we're projecting. We've been all through the models, and unfortunately we are looking at very flat, even a slight decrease in sales next year. It's just, we're not getting an increase in sales. It's something we've been fighting for the last 2 years. It's why we keep pushing electric vehicles and rebates and things to get people to use electricity. We want to sell more electricity. We want people to conserve, but as a business, we need to sell more. It's still everything we read and are presented. electric vehicles are our sales hope for the future. See, when we get that fleet over to electric, which we think it's going over in the next 10 years, that'll help our sales numbers. So we're looking at a total sales with energy and street lights of just over 300 megawatts next year. If we jump to the revenues, we have flat sales, and our revenues are projected to be slightly down next year. This is because we've included the change to the decrease in PP&FA that we proposed to the board today. So this budget is with the PP&FA as proposed in Clint's memo. So thus we have a decrease in revenues, and that shows that we are giving back that overcollect of PP&FA to the customers. We have an agenda to talk about the other rates, and there's been nothing put in this budget for any rate increase on the operational side or anything on the customer charge. That has not been included in this budget, and that will be added in as revenue if we make any changes. If we flip down to the expenses, the highlights are the first line 403, which are depreciation. We've kept the depreciation, which is the money that goes towards our capital expenditures, at 3% of plant value right now. Although that can range between 3 and 5%, depending on our capital program that Clint and Jason put together. Right now, we're at the low end, 3%. That's funding our capital program. 2 years from now, we're going to be facing a couple tough decisions. We have 2 major substation rehabilitations to do. A 3% funding of this account won't fund those. We'll be either looking at increasing this percentage or look at borrowing money for those 2 substations. Both good options. We'll just see which one's the best business option to fund them at that time. So that's where we're thinking ahead. It doesn't affect this budget right here. Work on those 2 substations is going on behind the scenes. However, we don't have major expenditures on that. And the other thing, with those 2 substations, we also have the upgrade to Station 42. We got to keep that going also. But I don't want to take the thunder of the capital program. The next one, item 555, the purchase power. That's where you can see our purchase power. We have the same power, but it's going to cost less next year. It's $16.8 million to buy the power. That's the good news. And then if we drop down 4 lines to item 565, the transmission. So even though power is going to cost us less, the transmission costs, actually get it here over the wires, that's going to cost us more next year than it does right now. Put capacity, transmission, and power all together, it's a net decrease. However, I do need to caution the board that transmission costs are going up, and they're projected to continue to go up over the next few years. We would love to have that big giant new line right up through New Hampshire or Maine, but right now it's we don't see any hope on the horizon for that right now. So power out there, we just can't get it to Massachusetts. The rest of the accounts are very straightforward, similar to last year. We are working with the town to finalize the numbers on the employee health benefits and those items. There's a little bit of work to do on those. And then if we flip down to near the bottom, the pilot payment to the town, you'll see the pilot payment going from $963,490 up to $1.125 million. That's that pilot payment increase that has been projected. It's part of the long-range plan adopted by the town, excuse me. So the budget as proposed before you folks today shows a deficit of $366,685. That's a combination of us being lower than we need to be on the operational side and the decrease on PP&FA where we're giving that money back. So on the PP&FA side, that would be funded through the PP&FA overcollect. However, on the operational side, We know we're below where we need to be. That's why a couple agenda items from now, we want to talk about that operational budget rate. And that's the 30,000-foot view of the budget, and glad to take questions, or we can all dig into things in more detail as we need to.
Okay, thank you, David. Mike, do you have any questions on the high-level view for David? We can't hear you, Mike, but I saw a no. You must be muted.
No. There we go. Now we got it. No,
Now-
high level is great. Thank you.
Okay, Eric Mitchell, do you have any questions on the high-level view? No? Okay. David, I just have one. Could you just add a little background for folks who might be watching on TV? What's driving the transmission costs to go up when the costs associated with the power itself are going down?
I would actually like to have Clint answer that, if we could, Bill.
Sure. Clint?
Sure, Bill. So essentially, there are more transmission lines being built, reduces capacity and congestion to get power into the north region of New England. To pay for those lines, so the transmission costs go up. The capacity, as I mentioned, the congestion is down, so the capacity costs are actually going down.
Okay, thank you. All right.
It's us paying for a portion of them building all those lines for what they're building,
And like you say, it would be nice if we could get the big power line from the hydroelectric in Canada, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Are we ready then for Peter to go into the details?
So
And by the way,
actually-
that was a great high-level view. Thank you, David.
So actually, we were gonna, because of the length of the agenda, present the budget like that with as a high-level view of the budget, and then take questions on the details. Peter's there to ask questions, but as far as the remainder of the budget is very similar to last year. No significant changes that we really needed to bring out to the board's attention.
Okay. In that case, we'll shift now to any further questions at the more detailed level. Mike Landers, do you have any questions for David or Peter or Clint at this level of detail?
No, I'm good with it. Thank you.
Okay, Eric Mitchell, questions for Peter, David, or Clint?
No questions. Thanks, Bill.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna ask just a few. And David's actually already addressed at least the first few. Peter, on page 2, line item number 902, I see a significant drop in the cost of meter monitoring labor and expenses, going from a budget of 2005 for this year to 122 next year, almost down to half. What drives that? Just curiosity more than anything else.
In general, that's the AMI technicians that we have there, and their labor, depending upon what they're working on, could be allocated elsewhere. And because of the way the budget came out, if you look in, you can see the next to the last column, the 49037. We've got, as I said, because of the pandemic, the way we charge the costs of the time when people were home on the pandemic, it appears that it's lower. So when we were doing the budget, we had kind of discovered this, and the cost of them are there. They may just be allocated in a different spot due to the extreme nature of how we had to pay for them this particular year. So it's somewhat stilted, and that's really what we're seeing here in this budget.
The second piece of that, Bill, is that we are hoping to get the meter replacement program going next year. And so some of the labor of these people will be capitalized through that replacement program.
Okay, good answer. Thank you. The other one question, Peter, is on line item 921, office supplies and expenses. It goes from roughly $500,000 to approaching $750,000. So it's, a sizable increase, and I was just curious as to what's driving that.
Bill, that's the computer software that we have to buy. We're estimating a 10% in general increase in the computer software, which that actually, you see the computer software, we actually spent 400,000 on computer software, the upgrades in calendar 19. So we were a little underfunded in the software line item.
Okay. Which line item is that? I just,
It's under 920, it's under 921. It's in
Oh,
further
okay.
detail.
okay. All right. Thank you. That takes, and I guess the kind of final question I had was, why are we budgeting a deficit for the year? But you really answered that in the high level view, that it's a combination of the change in of our operating costs and the impact of giving the PP and FA over collect back. And then, of course, we do have an upcoming rate discussion on operational costs. So that completes my questions. I'll now go by roll call if there are any further questions for Peter, David, and Clint. Mike Landers, any further questions?
No, I mean, I guess the one thing that I would say is that unlike some of the other budgets that we deal with in the town, it's unfair to sort of look at the electric light budget in a similar fashion, simply because these are moving targets to a certain extent, and although many of these things are hard and it's a legitimate budget, I'm not as concerned about the quote unquote budget deficiting as we have there, because there's an excellent chance that we're going to be sitting here next December looking at it and going, well, we've actually got a surplus of $1.6 million because things change. So if this was the school budget, it might be a little different, but in this one, it all makes sense, similar to years past, and it's, as always, Peter and his people have done a great job with it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Eric Mitchell, any further comments, questions?
Well, you never want to see a deficit budget, but like Mike, I think it's really tightly managed, and so I don't have any particular other comments other than that. It is what it is, and I appreciate all the hard work to get it to the numbers that we have.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I'll now go through the attendees. Any further comments, questions on the budget before I make any final comments? And then I'm assuming we need a motion to approve this budget and recommend it to the town. David, do we need a motion?
Actually, we don't need a motion on that. It's actually just we actually presented today to review and comment by the board, so we do not need a motion on that. And this is a proposed budget, so it's likely to be changed again before the final.
Okay, thank you, David. Do you have any further comments, questions?
No.
Okay. Clint Allen? No?
Another from me, thanks.
Okay. Jason Small?
Thank you.
Okay. Jeff Ely? Okay. Heard a no. Peter Kopritzik?
No comments.
No. Stephanie Doherty?
All set.
Okay. My final comments are, it's an extremely complex situation we're dealing with. We have the COVID, of course. We have purchase power costs going down. We have transmission costs going up. We are the benefits of a cost of service study, which is coming up. And I think a great job by the team. I've personally never met Ginny, but I would certainly hope you guys will pass on kudos for a job well done for managing through an extremely complex and difficult year to get us a budget that I understand, or at least I like to think I understand what's driving it, and I think I understand why it's showing a deficit at this point in time, and just kudos for a job well done. So with that, we will move to the next item, which is the capital improvement update.
So, Mr. Chairman, a little bit different in December. We don't have the normal either quarterly or monthly report from Clint and Jason. However, what we would like them to do is to just take you guys quickly through the capital program that is part of the budget. This represents the work that we would like to do or believe we need to do in 21. And Clint and Jason, we're just gonna run you guys right down through the projects on what's in mind for 21. All these projects are funded out of that depreciation account. Clint and Jason, you guys want to run through that list?
Sure, thanks, Dave. I mean, yeah, we can start. We'll just begin at the top. Jason, you want to kind of run through the high level, what we put out in 2020, and then what we anticipate in 2021.
Yes, sir. If you look at the first line item, it's the ACS hardware and software refresh, work order and financial management software upgrade.
And what's ACS? What's ACS?
That's an advanced control
vendor
system.
software for a SCADA system.
Okay.
That's their name. It's like, I don't know, I think Advanced Control Systems is what I think it stands for. 2020, we spent roughly $94,000 in this area. 5,000 of which was for the SCADA upgrade with ACS. Another 18,000 for. Most of that is complete. Trailing invoice that trickles in at the start of 21, but it is complete. For 21, for calendar year 21, we have $410,000, 200,000 of which is to upgrade our financial system software. And we have 75,000 for some switch replacements on the network. Keep that going. The switches need to be replaced. Then we have about 30,000 in there for replacement of the UPS batteries at our backup site as well as in our actual. Well, and then another 45,000 for to go next level with our OMS and our mapping and go with what we call Field Pro, which would put it on to for crews in the field as well as engineers to help make it more efficient. Next line item is Station 42 Control House upgrade. We did not get to that this year, primarily due to with the pandemic and not being able to in the office to walk through that bidding process. We had another priority come up at Danvers Sport that kind of pushed it. So we're going to pick that back up at the start of calendar year 21, and we have $350,000 in there to begin the final engineering and design for the new control house. Next line item is Station 42 upgrades. You're also primarily due to the pandemic, we only got to upgrading cameras at the substation, so that was just under 10 grand. For calendar year 21, $120,000, 28,000 of which are to replace some disconnects, get some increased capacity out of them. And another 52,000 to upgrade 2 23 kV air brakes. And not really Station 42, but 40,000 to upgrade the cameras at our Wells substation, Cabot Road substation, Pond substation. And those cameras also need to be upgraded as Station 42 is done this year. Next, just County 20, we did spend about $100,000 on communications upgrade. It was a radio tower installed at the old hospital. That is complete. We have no proposed upgrades for 21. Just a quick note on the Cabot Road substation upgrade. Project was to replace the switchgear there. Was more of a something that we'd like to have done. It wasn't didn't have requirements associated with it. And looking at everything else that we have to do over the next couple of years, we actually moved that out all the way to calendar year 22. Next up is probably one of the bigger projects, and I think Dave already mentioned it, was the Northland substation upgrades. This year we did do some survey and do, as well as, done, and that was, we only spent, just $2,600 on that. But, we are gonna begin, we're already, beginning push to start up, right away in 2021. To really get that going, and we're proposing $300,000 to build, work through, the easement negotiation as well as, begin the engineering and design. Hopefully, that project is gonna go on for a few years. It's gonna take a while to build, out, so we have money going all the way up to, calendar year 25. Project. 23 kV system upgrades. Here, mostly due to the pandemic, we did get one project done. Served a big, mixed-use, building downtown. Everybody's aware of it, in order to, some 23 kV work to build, and then we spent $80,000 on that. And for calendar year 2021, we're proposing this $175,000, and that's to one of our 23 kV circuits, runs through a right-of-way that has access issues. So we're proposing to relocate that onto, town streets to provide better access to, in case anything happens. That's pretty much what we have for the 23 kV for calendar year 21. For the 5 kV upgrades, we spent approximately $225,000 this year on a couple of kV projects. To date, roughly $5,000 on Water Street. If you go down there, you see a lot of poles have been replaced, and we're running a new wire. And so we're reconductoring to get improved reliability on there, and then we're also bringing the circuit to help with some load relief and some better ties. So that should hopefully increase the reliability and capacity of that area. And we spent $131,000 at Danvers Port. Kind of talked about, I think, it was the last, as part of one of the projects. And what happened there was we had our duct bank for the switchgate first manhole collapse. And so in order, we needed to replace that. And then because we had to replace that, we had to replace all the underground getaways. That cable is all currently installed and almost completely finished and ready to go. We just have last thing to do, which would be actually is going to happen tomorrow. It's the last set of terminations and elbows and test all the cable to prove it that it was installed properly. The project will be complete. For calendar year 2021, we have $250,000 expected to be spent, and that would be to finish that Water Street project that I just talked about, as well as upgrade the S1 circuit at Cabot Road. That was part of the 4 kV study that we had a consultant perform for us, that circuit to come down and take some load off of our Conan Street substation, which is by the middle school. So we have that upgrade proposed for this coming year, and also at the same study, the S5 circuit, also at a Cabot Road, the beginning sections of that circuit, the wire size needs to be upgraded. So the next project there as well. Both of those projects are in horizon set territory, part of Danvers. So depending on how everything goes, we'll try all the pole sets done and be able to work on that. But there's some risk there. To be able to get done and how long the pandemic goes. And just for calendar year 20, Ferncroft, we're proposing to spend about $90,000 on that. This together, it was $71,000 spent to date. And we did say it was going to be complete by the end of the year. However, right now it looks like it's going to trickle into January. All we have left is an outage to cut it over. And that outage has already been delayed 3 times. It's been pushed out to the second week in January, but as soon as we get that outage on this project, will be complete. And next up for major projects, we have a 23 kV pad mount switchgear replacement program. We did not get to replace any of those this year. Next year, we are proposing to do 3 replacements, $155,000. I will point out that you'll notice that it goes out in out years, and after the coming year, we're going to try to do 4 replacements a year. There are 20 switchgear in the system that are in this program that need to be replaced. They've been around for a long time. We're trying to hit them up before they reach end of useful life. So we're trying to get those all done over a 6-year span. The overloaded transformer replacement program in county of 20, roughly 40, almost $40,000. 31,000 of which was replacing overloaded transformers, and then 17,000 was spent on some proposed transformer storage at 28, Station 28. For county of 21, we're projecting the work on the 28 containment has about $5,000 in it for the permitting. The remaining 45,000 will be replaced overloaded transformers. Years we will containment system in 22 and continue to replace transformers. We are reviewing that. Our program has done well over the past 2 years. This, the overloaded part of it is primarily been taken care of for the most part, except for, as customers come in and add load, things change around a little bit. But we are going to add to that program and do more of an asset replacement and target the transformers. And right now, we're running that program and looking to target age transformer. Right now, we're thinking about anything over 30 years old. It's program and we'll be replacing it. So while we finalize that this year, we'll see what it's going to take to get that going and catch up. And we may have future spending increases. Next up is the power factor correction, which is our capacitor banks. We're maintaining a unity power factor. This year we were able to install 1 cap bank, so it was just under $50. And then we do have 15 more cap banks, whether they're new installs or replacements of older ones, scheduled for calendar year 21. $100,000. Next up is the LED streetlight conversion. As you know, lights are done. What we have in here for this year, calendar year 20, we spent roughly $66,000 to convert approximately 100 private area lightings. Basically, the floodlights to LEDs. Have 484 left in the system to convert. We're trying to do that over the next 2 years. $100,000 in calendar year 21 and another $100,000 in calendar year 22 for those LEDs. And we did do some one Borough Street improvements this year. We spent approximately almost over $97,000. I think which is mostly the parking lot. We finished the parking lot off, and then the gates, and then this coming year we're proposing $55,000. Get to the stuff that we didn't get to this year for the tech service garage, a skater room, and then some owners and conference room just to help us with storm restoration. For next year, for 2 Borough Street, we're proposing $50,000 to the lineman's room. That primarily is to provide things that would help during storm restoration and make it a little easier on them down there. So that's what we're looking to do. And then for 1 and 2 Borough Street physical security, we're proposing $20,000 in county of 21 and some security camera upgrades. And one would be the Elster project. Due to the pandemic and not plan to give planned outages to residents as they're working from home, that was pushed out of this year. We're going to try to hopefully be able to resume it on year 21, where we're proposing $70,000. The next line item is the landfill Smith School solar projects. Those projects got moved out due to the pandemic. We're proposing $125,000 in calendar year 21. I'd like to develop RFPs and to full and to see what we can do to get these solar projects going. Next line is the right-of-way revital upgrade. There was a couple of bridges that needed to be due to be replaced. That got pushed out with the pandemic. So for calendar year 21, we have 70,000, which for two of those bridges to be replaced. And, there is some work associated with our proposed trail over at Beaver Brook, so there's $20,000 for that work. The Dog Ave station generator project that also got pushed out through the pandemic. So in calendar 21, we're proposing $70,000 in design, and then in the county 22, the remainder $440,000 for the installation of the generator, and that's a requirement that we have with them that we have to fulfill. And then the last item really on here is the rolling stock. These are the vehicle replacements. This year, in calendar year 20, we spent roughly $33,000 on the hybrid. The other vehicles got rolled over into calendar year 21, which is why we're proposing $605,000 and a bucket truck, one of our digger derricks, and then one of our pickups that are all slated for the replacement. As you know, years of use every year, we try to replace the ones that are required. That's that. So for calendar year 2020, we're estimating about $2.2 million spent in the capital budget, and we're proposing in calendar year 2021 $3.59 million.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Now we'll go through the meeting attendees to see if they have any questions or comments for Jason. Eric Mitchell, do you have any questions or comments for Jason?
My general question, I just want to make sure I understand. So this document that Jason just walked us through corresponds with the next, the calendar year budget, because there's a line there that, if I get it right, total capital expenditures is the same, that last page. And so what Jason walked us through, his third line, $3.5 million, and all that he discussed is the same as the last line in the last column, total capital expenditures, the CY 21 request. Right.
Yes, so if that document I was walking through, second column from the right, it's FERC, and then you'll see there's some 362s, 397s, 364s, 365s. Those projects are all split up across those FERCs, and then they get tied back and exactly into the sheet that you're looking at.
Okay.
The distribution plant is the 364s, 362s, 365s, so those numbers get input into that. As you mentioned, it does add up to the 3.59 million, so that is this.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, Mike Landers, any questions or comments for Jason?
So Jason, just from a sort of more of a policy standpoint, so if we look at the totals on the bottom, there is sort of a wide range of ups and downs, and I understand that really once we get past next year, even to 22, that again, this is a bit of a guess. I mean, these are plans, and in some of these cases, they're the expected cost for projects that are going to take. If you look, for example, the Northland Station, that's going to be a long-term project that's going to be funded over a significant number of years at a significant expense. But is there a reason that we get the sort of the dramatic ups and downs with each year? So if you look at 21, we're at 3.5 million, then we jump up to 5.1 for 22, then we're back down to 3.5. There's almost an up, down, up, down. Peter might actually know the answer to that is better as well. But is there a policy standpoint for that, or is that just how it falls out as we work through these plans?
As of right now, it's kind of how it fell as we work through these plans. Ideally, it should be a little more consistent. I'm still reviewing some of these projects and what we think we can get done on a year-to-year basis. I like to be able to, one of the things I'd like to see is, better and more detail in the schedule, which we're working on now. And, we'll be able to, with that, we can tie some, budgetary numbers to and try to smooth that out. So, we don't really want to see the ups and down swings unless projects actually do walk out or walk in. But, yeah, as of right now, this is how it came out.
So, Mike, Jason's absolutely right. Well, he's sitting and they're working on the project schedules and when we're actually going to spend money and when we're actually going to be able to do things. That's the biggest thing, to be realistic. However, as you look at 22, when we're trying to do a project like Station 42 out of cash, that's the $2.2 million. If we do something like that out of cash, it's going to cause blips. We kind of save up for it and then have a blip. And so that one's probably right on the edge of what we do out of cash. We're putting just under $3 million into this. So we had to put, almost a whole year's allocation into this account right there. Which is why when we look at Northland, and even though we have those numbers in there, the 1.95, 2.2, 2.2, that we may be looking at a long-term debt for that instead of this up and down in this account, this budget.
The other thing I'd say is on some of these projects, we know we have to do them. It was in the 4KV study. We have a rough estimate of what that might cost, but we haven't fully developed the scope of work and provided estimates and good schedule updates. So some of it is we know we have to do it, and we're guessing when we're going to get to it. But ideally, we're going to really try to work on developing those plans and get together, try to smooth some of this out a little bit going forward.
I'm assuming with that today that's sort of in line with what some of the consultants that we brought on over the last couple of years have said in terms of what types of projects needs better through long-term funding and what types of projects make more sense to pay the cash when we have the opportunity to do so.
Absolutely. And they've all pointed out that we have very low debt for an organization of our size.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, that's good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Jason, I have just a few questions. Down near the bottom, the electric division facility, there's no money in there for the next 6 years. It's something we've asked about the last couple of years. It's been discussed the last couple of years. And I'm just wondering, is there any progress on that? Do we really see that not in the 5-year window that we're looking at?
So I was actually going to speak to that, Bill. So we've just signed a contract with an engineer who's in the business of relocating electric at DPW facilities. We had applied for a grant to pay for it, and we got turned down, unfortunately. So, but we have just signed a $52,000 contract. Of that, a percentage, is going to be applied to the electric budget and that's just happened within the last couple of weeks. So you'll see in the next version of this, you'll see a number of the electrics portion of that 52%. I think it's around 20 grand or something like that. That'll show up right here. So I've actually had a meeting with the engineers this week. We've kicked off the process. The first step is to catalog what we have, what are our needs, kind of do an audit and assessment of what our needs are, and then we'll get into looking at where we can put it.
Okay, thank you, David. Next question, Jason, then is 2 lines down, the landfill Smith School solar project. I was kind of surprised to see 125,000 in 2021 and nothing beyond that. Will both projects be expected to be completed within that time frame?
No, this is primarily money for the feasibility and to kind of develop the plan. Jeff can speak more on the landfill because I think he's been more involved.
So we didn't put money in the landfill going out, Bill, because we don't know whether it's going to be a lease purchase arrangement or if we're going to buy them outright and put them in ourselves. That's part of this whole this money will do an RFP. We'll get options both ways, and once we've decided which is best for Danvers Electric, whether to own it or to lease it, lease to own thing, then we'll put numbers in running out over the next few years.
Okay, I would have just guessed that you might have put a placeholder number in there to, just to recognize that it's there and it may be there or not. Okay, you recognize it the other way. You've got the line item.
We'll talk about it as staff and see if we should put placeholders in there. We just don't want to put a number unless we have something to base it on, but we'll take a look at that. Good point.
Sure. All right, and then the last question is the Dottie Avenue's Sewer District Pumping Station Generator Project. If it's a pumping station generator project, shouldn't it be under the water and sewer?
So like Jason mentioned, as an electric utility, we're required to provide two separate electric circuits to this pump station to provide redundancy because it's a regional plant. It serves multiple towns. Our second circuit used to go across the river. And when the river was dredged, it was deemed that circuit was compromised. So we put a trailer-mounted generator down there as the second circuit, and that needs to be replaced. So it's redundancy for the plant, which we're obligated to provide.
Okay. All
We're a
right.
good customer too, so it's okay.
Yeah, we know their management, right?
Well, no, I know how many KWHs they use, so that's all.
Okay, thank you, David. That completes the comments and questions by the board. I'll now go through each of the attendees to see if they have any additional comments or questions for Jason on the capital budget. David Lane?
Also, thank you.
Clint Allen?
No questions here. Nice job, Jason.
Okay. Feely?
No comments. Thank you, Jason.
Peter Korpusek?
No comments.
Stephanie Doherty?
No comments.
Okay. That completes the number 8 item on the agenda for the capital improvements. We'll now move to, I'm sure, a very interesting and passionate discussion of the electric rate review. This was not, for the board members, this was not in the original package of material that you included, but it was emailed yesterday. And hopefully you've got it and printed it out and it's available or have it on your screen. So that's available. David, who's going to present that? Is that Clint?
Well, I guess I wanted to start out with the overview and then have Clint augment in with some detail on how we got to this analysis. But we need to start with when we did the cost of service study. It showed that with the flat KW rate sales in our current portion of the rate that goes towards operation, we're not making enough money to fund the operations. That's the operations, meaning the bucket trucks, the meter readers, the office, the billing clerks. All of those are operational costs, which are kept separate from the cost of us to buy the power. And right now, obviously we all know there's been a slow but steady inflation on all those costs every year, but yet our sales have been flat. So we're in the minus on operation costs. So we really need to work with the board to do something with our electric rates in order to increase the operational side of that rate. The good news is right now we have a decrease in the power side of the rate. So when the person gets their bill, it's two parts. It's the power cost and the operational cost. And if power costs go down, that helps offset any increase on the operational side. As we looked at various options to increase more revenue for the operational side, the most simplest version is, we add a couple cents to the electric rate that goes towards operation, like has been done in the past. That could be done. However, in the study and what we've received from everyone across the industry, utilities of both our size, bigger ones, smaller ones, all are finding the need to have a customer charge. There's a basic costs of providing electric service to all of our customers. And we need to take a hard look at, shouldn't we have a customer charge on there? So if one of our customers doesn't use any electricity, we still have to pay something just to have that service. We still needed to read that meter. We still needed to provide that service in case they showed up at home, even if they happened to be in Florida for 6 months. That's the logic behind a customer charge, which has been accepted industry-wide. Not here in Danvers yet, but industry-wide. The second piece of the customer charge, as we head more and more into things like solar energy and batteries in people's garages, where people are able to generate some of their power and store some of their power. The key word right there is some of their power. They still need us for the other piece. And so essentially we're like in standby mode. If your solar panels, if Eric's brand new solar panels down there, they're all on the sunny days, they're all great, happy, providing all that power. We need to be there, ready to give that complex power should all of a sudden the clouds come over. The clouds come over, bang. Now he wants Danvers Electric to send power. That costs money. Be on a standby, waiting to provide them power, and we're not getting any revenue. Those are some of the key reasons why we're a little bit upside down in the operational costs. So our recommendation to the board is to seriously consider having a customer charge for the R1 and look at the customer charge that's currently being charged for the G1, G2, and G3s and work towards what the customer charges were that were recommended in the study. Right now on the residential bill, residential customers have a minimum. If Mr. Landers uses he only uses a few kilowatts, he still pays his minimum bill of $5, even if it wasn't $5 worth of power. But once he uses $6, he pays $6, not 5 plus 6. Essentially, it's not a customer charge. It's just a minimum that we don't get as soon as he goes to $6. The cost of service study, which done by UFS, which we all think I think they did a really good job, and they really looked at Danvers and tried to put a plan together that fit Danvers Electric. Doesn't fit the grid, may not fit Peabody, but fits Danvers Electric. And they showed us theoretically where the customer charges should be right now. And in R1, they're proposing a customer charge of $23.22. That's right on Clint's memo there. We believe to go from 0 customer charge to $23.22, that's a real shock. All of a sudden I'm paying $23 per month for a customer charge that really would have rate shock on our customers. But if we went all the way to $23, we might be able to drop the actual per kWh rate slightly. But still, we don't think that would be a good thing for our customers. We still think it would be looked at as a rate spike. What we would propose is for the board to look at a customer charge that's enough to get us out of the negative on the operation side and actually make a little bit of revenue in order to build our reserves back slightly. We were looking at a target of, could we make $1 million a year off the, in profit off of our operational side so that we can get our reserves back. We're going to be, as a board, working on those reserve policies, which we all know are low now, later on this winter. And so we've presented various options. And if you look on Clint's memo is, if we went to 22% of the recommendation, 28% of the recommendation, 32%, 37, 43. So we gave a whole bunch of different percentages of the recommendation. And really feel if we could get in the middle of that, right around that 32% number, that would put Danvers Electric on the course it needs to be. Clint, do you want to jump into that and see what did I miss or was I confusing about?
No, Dave, that was far more clearly delivered than I ever could have, certainly.
The man with a golden tongue, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, Clint, that was your comment?
I think that's all I got at this point. We'll just get ready for the discussion, I suppose.
Okay, we'll open up the discussion. I think it's your turn to go first, Mike. Mike Landers, do you have any questions, comments on this proposal for David or Clint?
So I guess, so I can completely understand it. So we've got the minimum right now, which is the $5. So I guess if I look at it this way, the first group that will be probably the most impacted, or at least not have the greatest knowledge of this, if we, for example, went to the full recommended amount of 2322, would be those people, snowbirds, who basically leave Danvers for the winter, have in essence pay a $5 fee because they're not really using any power. They all of a sudden would be, wait a second, why is my bill no longer that basically nominal $5? Not that $22 isn't nominal, but it's now increased by 400 and some percent. So that group would be probably would know the most that this was happening. Because I can tell you that I probably, because I paid very little attention to my bill other than what the amount is and how overdue it is, and, despite his claim that I don't use a lot of power, trust me, the Landis family uses a lot of power. So you could put the $22 in there and I wouldn't have any idea what, where, how it was even with this. But the way I understand it is that those individuals, so let's say we go to the 750, those individuals would still basically just pay the 750. The only difference would be that first month that they come back, if they come back for the last week of April and they only used a small amount of power, their bill would be 750 plus whatever that small amount of power was, as opposed to now they get over the $5, so it's just a small amount of power.
Correct.
Okay. I understand that this is a dramatic change from the way we have traditionally done business in town. There have been any number of reasons why I think we've tried to avoid this. Partly because, I have no idea how many people that I just described in town there are, but my guess is that there's a fair number of people who a $7.50 increase to their bill, which in essence is what we're going to be talking about here, will be a fairly dramatic percentage increase to that bill. Nonetheless, I think if you look at well, let me say this. I also can understand the fact that the group that is going to be the least impacted to a certain extent would be the residential users like myself, who use way more power than we probably should. But because of the percentage part of it, and we're also going to see the decrease in our usage, the kilowatt hour amount, I may actually have a slightly lower bill, arguably, under the circumstances with this. So I think it makes good sense. I think this is exactly what we've spent a fair amount of money on over the last few years on consultants who have come in to look at these particular issues for us. I think we recognized when we did that, and when we understood that we were going to take a look, there's some unique ideas or ideas that we don't traditionally use here in Danvers. We're going to come from those studies. This maybe is one, even though this isn't a particularly non-traditional idea, it's certainly something that's somewhat foreign to us. But I personally think it makes sense. I think the idea of it not being at the $5 amount, which would basically be the same for everybody, really wouldn't change much for most people that way, but bumping it up a little bit makes sense as well. And I also think, obviously, the number in terms of the idea that by going to that 32% number, we're going to generate a little bit more than $1 million in revenue conceivably from that has value as well. So I guess it's a long-winded way of saying that I support the studies that have gone into this. I support the idea that we're going to do this, and I also support the number at 32% with gradual increases over the next few years as a concept. So.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Eric, do you have any questions, comments?
Two quick points. Any thought to how this impacts a customer who's on a balanced bill situation? does it have any impact at all to someone who's trying to level out their bill and they've entered that arrangement? How would that impact them?
Well, it would, even there, it would be still a flat percentage increase. If you look at Clint's chart on the second page, if they used 1,000 kilowatts, even if they were on a level bill, and, it's still gonna go between, it's gonna be like 0.85 net percent increase to their level bill.
Okay. And then,
Same
so my
number of kilowatts.
Okay, so then my second question, when I literally pulled up my bill to look at it, and my bills will range anywhere from in the 600 range up into the 11 or 1200 range. Is there a disincentive to save, right? If my higher bill, my $1,100 bill, comes in at whatever, and it just it's not as impacted, am I going to be less inclined to save energy? So.
I think you're right, and that's why, like, our consultant recommended the charge of $23, which gets people's attention. And but yeah, it's tough to describe it if it's really going to affect that. It seems like it's more. This is just like a cost of business separate from saving, and we need to do the saving conservation separately from this.
Okay, I mean, and that's really what jumped out at me. It's, if sometimes I use more, sometimes I use less. If my bill, when I use more, is lower, and I'm just firing away, but that may be just more complicated than it needs to be, but that's what was on my mind.
I think the one, to more complicate that once we get through the customer charge idea, all the recommendations are, then we head towards time of use rates, where we really work, like, we want you to use power during the day, use it. It doesn't, but then at 4 to 6 o'clock at night, we want to try to get you to conserve. So that's really where we're headed when we look at time of use rates in the future, over the next 5 years, probably.
Okay.
Biggest bang for the buck.
Okay, thank you, Eric. All right, David and Clint, I got a few questions too. I appreciate the work that's gone into this, and I appreciate, the wisdom that went into getting the cost of service study. And I've thought a lot about it in the last day or so since we got all this information, and particularly this analysis. And I'm frankly struggling with where do we go with it. And I even thought back to our charter. Our charter says we approve the PPFA. I don't recall that it specifically says we approve tariff changes, which this would fall under a tariff change. But it certainly seems appropriate for us as a board to really think about this, to really ask a lot of good questions of the management team, and really think about, the health of the business and the impact on the business of this very dynamic situation we're in. So I tried to think of it as I went through this analysis in that context. I think this is a very good analysis. Frankly, I thought Clint maybe was missing one piece, and that is the marrying of the cost of service study projections that we had by the vendor along with this, and put those two together, which I kind of did with just notes on the graph on page 2. And I just made some notes for myself here to ask this and to provide what hopefully makes sense in terms of this context of discussion. I looked at the cost of service study deficit in operating costs for 2021 with no change or no addition of a customer charge. And that deficit amount was $738,000 roughly. If we were to go with the 22% adjustment, the $5 customer charge, that would generate $804,000 of revenue as projected within the cost of service study. Now, I recognize these are done at different times. I'm not sure exactly, how accurate today the cost and revenue figures that were in the cost of service study would be. But I at least tried to say, okay, what are the two deficit numbers? Or what is the deficit number we're trying to deal with? And what is the revenue that would be generated by the customer charge? And see how those two relate. So if we were to say the deficit as projected in the cost of service study is $738,000, then the $5 22% adjustment would slightly cover that, slightly exceed that. Where the 750 would generate almost $1.3 million. So it would, significantly cover that deficit. And then I also looked at it in terms of the budget deficit we're projecting for next year, which is roughly 350,000, I think it was. So if we were to do the $5, we would get $804,000 of revenue is the figures we're looking at. And of course, these are all projections, estimates, and subject to change. The one thing we know about estimates is they're always wrong. Those will not be the final numbers. So I looked at it kind of in that context. And so I looked at 2021 that way. Then I looked at 2022. For 2022, the cost of service study projected a deficit of $1.2 million, and the 750 charge would generate a little over that, almost $1.3 million. And then for 2023, the deficit was projected at just about $1.8 million, and the $10 charge would generate about almost $1.8 million. So those three numbers or six numbers kind of seem to go together in my mind. And to me, that was sort of a strategy that arriving at independently, I would say would minimize the impact on ratepayers and keep us healthy. But we're just covering those operational deficits. I didn't see a recommendation which was verbalized for the 750 number in the handout material or the emailed material, and that's fine. I think we should have been allowed to digest it, make our own thoughts without hearing a recommendation from the management team. I tend to be of a mind that says, let's make sure we keep the business healthy. We provide extremely reliable electric service to our customers at a very fair rate. I think we do an excellent job of running the business. I think we do it in a safe manner so we don't see our people getting hurt on the job very often. And so I think we have a very healthy business. It's very well managed, and we need to continue that. So my first thought was minimize the impact on the ratepayers and kind of go with the $5 charge. After hearing David's summary and Clint's support, I guess I'm leaning toward the 750, which keeps us a little healthier financially. And I know if our friend Mark Zubrick was in the meeting on the call, he probably wouldn't agree with me. But it's a case of, we're all entitled to our own opinion, and that's mine. And I guess that completes my comments. So at this point, then, I would like to open it back up for comments and questions. Looks like Eric and Mike have temporarily stepped away. So I'll open it back up to the other attendees for questions, comments, continued discussion on the customer charge discussion and recommendation. So David, let's start with you.
Sure, Bill. Yeah, thank you for making that connection to the numbers. You did a very good job showing that at the bottom end of what we showed you, we barely covered last year's, and that we'd probably be upside down going into this right away because of the small increase in cost this year. So, to think a $5 one is going to get us out of the hole, it wouldn't. We need a little bit more. We need more than that. And that's the justification to get up into the middle of this range. And perhaps our goal is looking forward. Maybe if we went in the middle of the range at the 750, maybe we'd be able to keep it the same next year. If we had a little bump up in sales, we'd be good, something good. But if we'd hate to have to put it at $5 and then change it to $9 next year. That would be a giant increase on there, and wouldn't like that. We did meet with the town manager and the finance director, ran through the numbers exactly like you did, where we are cash-wise, showing the declining revenues on the operation size. The town manager, he's he'd love to see 850. And I said, yep, that gives us more cushion. However, that 850, now you're getting up something hard to take from our customers, especially this year. I do feel, trying to, even though we do need an increase on the operational side, trying to keep it as low as possible and still minimize the impact to our customers, which we feel that's what the 750 does, especially with the drop in PPA.
Okay, thank you, David. Clint Allen, do you have any questions, comments for the discussion?
I think we stepped through the memo. All the points that I would like to speak to kind of got brought up. And Bill, I second David's notion. You did a very good job on the analysis and tying the two reports together.
Okay, thank you, Clint. Let's go back to the board members who both checked back in. I don't know if you heard what I had to say, but Eric, do you have any further questions, comments for the discussion?
Well, if I were to capture, I got most of what you were saying. We're comparing the current budget, the projected budget, and looking at the numbers and trying to minimizing the increase. And the response that I heard was, then we may be looking at incremental increases, year after year. So that's what I gathered somewhat. It sounds like the recommendation or the leaning, David, is somewhere in the middle. Is that what I gathered?
That's correct.
Okay, so that was my only question. Just wanted to make sure I was clear where folks were leaning. Let me then say that this is taking into account the numbers that we've already addressed and how it would affect folks in the immediate year coming up.
That's correct.
All right.
Thank you, Eric. I think I'd just like to add one clarification. This reflects the operational side of the bill and the business. Separately is the PP and FA, that reduction. These numbers don't reflect that. It's a totally separate discussion. Purchase power is covered with a PP and FA. These are operational costs. They're separate discussions. So this is not made, if you will, in light of what we discussed earlier on PP and FA purchase power costs. Okay.
Okay.
Mike, are you all set, Eric, then?
I am. Thank you.
Okay. Mike, did you have any further questions, comments at this point in the discussion?
So just from a practical standpoint, and I guess Dave can answer this, and I think I understand what Bill was saying at the very beginning, which is, in essence, our responsibility as a board is to set that PPF and FA on a monthly basis. That the operational stuff, although we certainly play a role in discussing it and providing a forum to be able for the public to be able to understand and potentially provide concerns or questions, and that's our responsibility. This is an item that we would not necessarily have any regulatory control over. Is that a fair? I mean, this isn't something that we may approve it from a policy standpoint, but ultimately this is one of those things that the town manager as with the authority that he has over those provisions would
That's correct.
set. Yeah, okay. Which is fine. I think it's important for people to recognize how the system actually works sometimes. And I know that's Bill and I have had long discussions about that, how important it is, because I think unfortunately many people don't realize. They look at us as a board and they think, well, why are you setting the rate that way? And of course, we're like, well, because I don't set the rate necessarily. But from a policy standpoint, which I think we do have a responsibility to comment on, I think that this makes some policy sense. Most importantly, from the standpoint of the professionals in this industry that we've retained to look at these types of issues. They believe this is the way we should do it, and I agree that we probably shouldn't just jump in 2 feet with the $23 number.
Excuse me a minute, I've got to pop out for a minute. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, do you want me to, I can do 4 or 5 minutes right now of material that people.
I knew you had it in you.
What do you want to talk about now that Bill's not here? But I just think that in this particular situation, it makes sense to go along with this recommendation, and anticipate that we're going to have questions from the public. But it sounds like certainly from Clint that they are prepared to be able to deal with those questions. And I think that this makes some sense, especially going forward, with the very real possibility that we're going to see more people who as Dave, as you said in the early stages of this, okay, and Bill's back. I'm good, thank you.
Yes, I apologize. I have my Christmas card for the mail deliverer, and I left a note for her, please come to the door, so I could give her, a card with some money in it to say thank you for the great service all year. And of course, she came during the meeting, so I apologize. Can you go back over your last few comments, Mike?
I was wasting time for you to come back, Bill, basically. They were all the same comments I made before. No, you didn't miss anything.
Okay. So could you provide a quick executive summary of what you said, Mike?
Yeah, I think, Bill, that at this point right now, I just believe that we've got the recommendation from the analysis that's been done by the outside consultant that this is going to be a change. It is going to result in probably some questions from the public, but that to implement this over a period of time makes sense, but that ultimately this is the right way to go in terms of trying to deal in a more effective way with issues that we have with our operational costs.
Okay, thank you. Let's go. Well, let me come back with comments on Eric's and Mike's comments, and then we'll go through the management team for any additional comments. I think those were both very insightful, and I think while we may not formally approve, as Mike said, we provide a forum for public comment, oversight, review, if you will. And I think it's incumbent upon this board to ask questions to challenge the management team that, have you guys looked at everything? Have you really thought this through? Are you considering the impacts on the town, the impacts on the ratepayers, the residents, the people who are buying our product? And I think it has to be number one is, are you properly taking care of the health of this business so that we can continue to provide excellent, reliable, cost-effective electric service to the town? Are we meeting all of the obligations of the electric division to the town, to the public? And so, I think that's why we've got people of the quality of Eric and Mike on the board. and they bring up, they've got great business backgrounds. They bring up great questions. I try to do the same. And so I appreciate, the input from you guys. I particularly appreciate the thoroughness of the job done by the management team in presenting this to us. At this point, I guess I would ask David, do you need a vote on this from the board?
So, it was very important for the town manager for us to come have this discussion, and yeah, we would like to have a vote of the board, absolutely.
Okay. In that case, I am hearing from the town management of the division a recommendation to implement a $7.50 customer charge effective the beginning of 2021, or would it start February 1st?
That would start on January 1st, and what that would be is a 32, and that would be a $7.50 customer charge for R1, and it would be a 32%, it would be an increase for the G1 and G2. So G1 would be $11.07. I mean, G1 would be $11.07. G2 would be $40.99. I guess say $41, Peter. $41. G3 would stay at the current level.
Oh, okay, I guess that's on page 1, David?
Correct. Yeah, the one on page 1.
Okay, so, 750, 1107, 40.99, $41, and then 210 would stay the same.
Correct.
Okay, and just a quick summary. Residential is all of us in our homes. Small general is what? Small businesses as a kind of catch-all?
Yeah, it's actually, couldn't give us a number below certain KWHs. So the small businesses around town.
Below 10,000, below 10,000 per month.
10,000 KVA.
Okay, and then medium general, that's the town and medium-sized businesses?
Yeah, that would be above 10,000 kilowatt hours per month and less than 500 kW of demand per month.
Okay, and that's where the town falls? So this would be to town as well as,
The town has various accounts, Bill, so.
okay,
Depending on the facility.
yeah, okay. And then the large general is, there's very few customers in that. Is that correct?
16 of those. 16
16.
P3s.
Okay, so they don't see a change. All right, I guess before we go to the actual making of a motion, I think Clint's third graph was quite insightful for me. That the impact as a percentage of whatever we implement, which would be the gray line, 750, is what's under discussion at the moment. We're going to entertain a motion for the people in the, the snowbirds, et cetera, would see an 18% increase. People with very low usage, and if I say between the 250 and 500, that's about where I happen to fall. I would see about a 7.7%, 8% increase. We don't have central air conditioning. That's probably why that's low. We're looking at the impact to customers in this graph, and particularly residents, because they're the vast majority of our customers. And if I stay with Mike and Eric and their 1,000 kilowatt hours, you're going to see a lesser percent increase. I think nagging at me is those customers who may be low usage, but who are most impacted by the COVID, with maybe loss of jobs or certainly reduced hours if they're in the service industries and that sort of thing. That's the only part that really nags at me. And I think the 750 is a reasonable compromise. And we first and foremost, we need to make sure that we have a safe and healthy electric division. So, having said that, do I hear a motion to accept the recommendation from the management team to implement a customer charge of $7.50 a month and the
Bill-
accompanying G1 and G2 rates? From other board
Bill,
members?
before we do that, can I just ask maybe one quick comment or a question to Dave, which is, we had, our discussion was almost exclusively about the residential portion of this, which makes sense. I just so that I can sort of get my thoughts on the record with this. On the other two predominant groups of customers that we have, both the commercial customers and obviously the town as a customer, I would say that I am less inclined, although I'll support the recommendation to the extent that the management has made, but I would be less inclined to limiting that amount on our commercial customers. Ultimately, yes, things like electric bills get passed on to their customers. So, it's not just simply saying, just put it on the commercial ratepayer, Ultimately, that does end up flowing its way down. But I would say that I would be favorable to a higher percentage of that amount being passed on to them. So, for example, with those 16 largest customers that we have, where they won't for at least a couple of years see an actual increase in their customer charge, I would be willing to see that increase for them. So that the idea that we're going to do 32% across the board, I would be favorable towards that 32% number for residential customers, but moving up to a 50 or 60% number for our commercial customers, especially if that meant that we did not charge the town a customer charge. I have very mixed feelings about a number of the things that we do with the town, and again, that's a very complex issue because of the relationship that we have with the town as a customer. But and sometimes it's just paper money going back and forth on forms. But I don't believe that this is appropriate for the town to have the customer charge passed on to the town. And again, I don't want to get too in depth with it because I will support. And I guess by way of saying that, I will make a motion that we provide our support to the proposal as provided by the utility manager and set a customer charge as shown in the memorandum provided to us.
Okay, do I hear a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, we will now open discussion on that motion. And so, Mike, here is where you might want to further amplify the thoughts you've just had as to, do we carve out the town? Do we alter the motion at some point? Do we consider an amendment that we, differentiate at that percentage for the different class of customers? So since you've already sort of started the discussion, Mike, I'll ask you first.
My answer to that, by way of answering my own question, would be no. That we follow the proposal or the recommendation that's been made on this, because there's been an effort made by our administration to come up with this plan, and that this is a plan that works for them. However, obviously, as this is something that's going to have to be redone on a yearly basis, I would recommend that we take a very close look at this and look at both of those things, and look at, for example, would it make sense next year? Because I think the plan would be next year to increase the customer charge by some amount so that we implement this in over a number of years to ultimately get to the recommendation made by the consultant. But that we conceivably contemplate and think very strongly about, one, do we increase the rate of that implementation for our commercial customers? And two, do we back off on it with the town?
Okay, so you're not proposing a change to the motion as made. but you're challenging the town management when we look at it for next year. And I do agree that we need a strategy, a multi-year strategy to get to where we are recommended to be by the consultant. Okay, that's clear, Mike. Thank you. Eric, do you have comments? Further comments?
Nope, I like the way Mike phrased it, to support the recommendation, and so no comments beyond that.
Okay. Continuing with discussion, I'll now go around all the meeting attendees. David Lane?
All set, thank you, Bill.
Okay, Clint Allen?
No comments, questions, Bill. Thanks.
Okay, Jason Small?
No comments, thank you.
Okay, Jeff Ely?
No comments, thank you.
Okay, Peter Korpusik?
No comments.
Stephanie Doherty?
No, the only thing I'll probably need is how should I write the motion?
I'll have-
Okay, Mike, restate it for Stephanie?
So,
Go ahead, Dave.
yeah, Stephanie, the motion is for the board to support the recommendation to January 1st, institute a customer charge for R1 customers is $7.50 per month.
Yeah,
G1 customers at $11.07 a month.
yeah,
G2 customers at $41 a month.
okay,
And to leave the customer charge of $210 for G3 as is.
okay.
Okay,
Yep, perfect.
all right. I think Peter Korpusik, you were next to, do you have any further comments? Oh, and we said no, and Stephanie said no. I'd like to add one thing, particularly in light of Mike's comments about exempting the town. When I look at the UFS cost of service study and I look at page 9, I look at municipal street lighting. The town gets quite a bargain from us. Significant bargain. And as you will all recall, I challenged the increase in our payment in lieu of taxes. So with that also working around in my squirrel cage up there, I've thought quite a bit about, what is our obligation to the town as the electric division owned by the town? And I'm actually quite comfortable with Mike's suggestion that we not pass this on to the town, because again, paraphrase Mike, I think it's funny money going back and forth to a degree. These are real charges. Those are real dollars we transmit to the town for payment in lieu of taxes. Those are real dollars that we get from the town when they buy electricity. However, I do think as a utility owned by the town, providing electric service to the town should be part of our charter. So I have come to become comfortable with that. Stephanie, are you confident that you have the motion down? Okay, would you read it back to us so we're clear on what we're voting on?
I just put, the board supports the recommendation from management to implement the customer charge, and then I'll list the customer charges that are on this here.
Okay.
And that's it?
That's it. Right, Mike?
Okay. Yeah, I guess I was just confused when Mike was talking about the other part. I wasn't sure if I had to incorporate that into this
Sure.
recommendation.
That'll all come up later, Stephanie. That's for the future.
Okay,
Yeah. That was the challenge to the town management team here, to consider going forward when we're not under as much pressure of time.
Okay.
Think about what's the best total business strategy here. So,
okay, thank you.
okay. We have now completed the discussion, and it's time for a roll call vote on the motion on the table to accept the recommendation for implementing the customer charge as in the table on the analysis. So how do you vote, Mike Landers?
Aye.
Aye. How do you vote, Eric Mitchell? Eric voted, I could see his mouth move, say aye.
Aye, yeah.
I also vote aye. So that motion passes unanimously to accept the management team's recommendation of the customer charge starting January 1st. Okay, that completes item number 9 on the agenda. And we had postponed the vote on item number 5, the PP and FA, at my request until we had completed this discussion so that we had the full view of what was happening with the rates and customer charges. And so now I would like to bring up the vote on the PP and FA. So Stephanie, would you mind reading that? Do you have it handy, or does Mike or Eric want to make it again?
I move that we accept the PP and FA for January 2021 as provided in our packet.
And I second that.
Okay, thank you, guys. I will ask, just as a formality, if there is any further discussion, since we are now about to vote on the motion to accept the PP and FA recommendation. So, Eric, do you have any further discussion on this motion?
I have none.
Okay, Mike Landers, do you have any further discussion?
Nothing, thanks, Bill.
Okay, Dave Lane,
All set, thank you.
Clint Allen,
All good, Bill, thanks.
okay, Jason Small,
All set, thank you.
Jeff Ely,
All set, thank you.
Peter Korpusik.
I'm all
Okay.
set.
Okay, Stephanie,
I'll
Marty? Okay, at this point, with the discussion completed, we will now move to the roll call vote. Mike Landers, how do you vote?
Aye.
Eric Mitchell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chairman Bill Hayes votes aye. The motion passes unanimously. That completes items through 9 on the agenda. We now move to item number 10. Utility Director will provide an update to the board on various items of interest.
Bill, before you do that,
Yep,
you may not have seen my note. I have to drop off. I have a whole team of people waiting for me in another Zoom call.
okay.
I didn't
All
want to
right.
be abrupt, but
Oh, I must have missed it, sorry.
okay. So thank you all very much. I will circle back around with you, Bill. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, excellent input, Eric. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Merry
Okay.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Okay, we're ready for the Utility Director update to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're getting later in the day. I'll try to be very brief and take any questions. On the personnel updates, we have multiple processes going on. The recruitment for our new Director of Engineering Operations, headline worker, first cost line worker, and the tech services technician. Those are all underway. We also have a vacancy in the business division, which is important. We're working with the town manager to get authorization to get that going. That recruitment is not started yet. The COVID update, we are back on a skeleton crew. This is across all town offices. The town offices are getting closed to the public through January 11th. We are providing all the customer services that need to be done behind the scenes or with appointments with the customers. Call us. We'll take care of any need the customers have, just like normal business. However, we can't have customers walking into the public buildings right now. So also our staff, our work staff, we've split the crews up and they are on skeleton crews. Essentially, we're on an A, B, and C crew. We're still doing all of our essential services, getting everything done. All the employees are on call. We call them back when needed for essential duties, storms, etc., or work that just has to be done. But we are having to push off any optional work. All of the engineering, administration, technical staff, they've been set up with computers, just like you see Mr. Ellie, and they're all working from home, completing all those technical tasks at home. And IT has really helped us set up connections for them. Work's continuing. However, we're closed to the general public right now through the 11th. On the projects, the biggest thing that we want to talk about either next meeting or the one after is staff has continued to make great strides with the outage management system, or OMS. really is going to be very excited, and I know staff is going to be excited to present that to the board at an upcoming meeting. Already using it behind the scenes and getting it ready to stand up so that the public can even see it. It's been a long time coming, and everybody really grabbed onto that through this the last few months. Financial management software, we're doing some work on that upgrade. It's kind of behind the scenes a little bit, but the biggest thing is to get a work plan going for 2021 on what are we going to accomplish on the financial management update in 2021, who's going to do what, and we're putting together that work plan over the next few weeks. No word yet on the DPU investigation, and the meter installation is continuing to be on hold as we still have all of the students are back remote. As long as that, we're planning to keep it on hold while the students have the remote learning going on. And that's it for a brief update.
Okay, Mike Landers, do you have any questions for David?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, any comments on the meeting?
Nope. I think I will say this, that you did a fantastic job today, Bill. This was a lot of information in there, and you did a great job running it. I really appreciate it. And once again, we'll wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and I hope that our staff stays safe and comfortable, and we'll see you all next year, which will hopefully be a much better year for all of us.
Yes. Well, thank you. That wasn't the compliment I was fishing for.
You deserve it.
It's appreciated. I'm going to rain on the parade a little. I do have some questions, like I try to do every time, but I'll make them quick.
Forget it, then. You ran an awful meeting. Stop it.
I'll accept very short answers. David, employee appreciation. Any progress?
So we've been continuing to work with employees. As far as through the COVID, as far as it's been like kind of cheerleading with them, getting them through this. Hasn't been the time to do individual gifts to the employees. This is not the time. It would seem trivial compared to everything we're dealing with here with COVID.
Okay, I accept. I just wanted to compliment Jeff on the energy efficiency report. I thought that was a really nice job, and Jason on the capital projects. I know that's a very complex subject and tough to present. That one's done. Just a request for you, Stephanie. In the January package, could we include an updated organization chart?
Yep.
Okay.
That was done. That's done. I've got one other thought, and it's just a suggestion I want to throw out to David and Peter and Clint. I spoke last month about a concern with turnover in our organization at the top. And I spoke of it as both an opportunity for the business and a sign of a healthy business, and also an occasional concern. I thought of one opportunity since then, and I just like to throw it out as a suggestion, and you guys do with it as you think appropriate, including tossing it. And that is, we have a new, very capable person in the business, Angelica, who's not on the call today. And I thought, it's not very often that we have someone come into the top management team from outside. Probably the last one was Jeff. And would it make sense to ask her just to think about what suggestions she could make if she were a consultant that we hired from outside to look at her part of the business and make any recommendations to you guys? Doesn't need to come to the board. Just, take advantage of the experience she's gained in another organization and maybe get some recommendations from her, kind of as a brainstorming exercise that, you and she would feel comfortable making and tossing if they don't seem appropriate. Again, that's a suggestion.
Can't agree with you more, Bill. Actually, Angelica was on the call. Her computer crashed. So she's been kind of behind the scenes with Peter there, monitoring the meeting, but had some technical difficulty. And we're already doing that with her. Jason Small came from the outside. We use his guidance or his recommendations from other outside. He brings to us from other municipal electrics, from the IOUs. Mr. Allen up top came from the private sector. So we're getting all of that from the outside. Absolutely can't agree more.
Oh, I didn't
Including
include
gel
Vincent
coat.
because I thought he'd been here a while. So, okay, that completes my comments. Shall we schedule the next meeting?
Yeah, how does the last week of the month look, Bill?
At this point, fine.
Pete?
Mike, how's it work for you?
Yeah, I don't have anything, I don't have anything at the end of January from what I can make of it. So,
Well, I propose we do the 26th as the primary and keep the 19th is the holiday week. So,
yeah,
26th would probably be better.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
yep.
Okay. All right. Do I hear a motion for the meeting to adjourn?
You
Oh,
do, so
excuse me.
moved. Oh,
I would like to say,
Oh, the public, Bill? Anything from the public?
oh, yes, thank you. Clint, have we received any emails during the meeting with public comments, questions?
We've received no emails, no phone calls.
Okay, thank you.
I have one, Bill, just before we go, I have one question, which was, why was it that at one point when Peter Kapusek stood up, we saw nothing from the waist down? I want to know what color his pants are right now.
Wait, Peter, what
That
color
was
are his
happened.
pants?
They're a blue.
I was afraid he was going to say he was not wearing any.
No, they're a
This
blue.
is like-
I
Yeah.
believe it's marine blue. They're actually new and it's marine blue. I asked when I left the house today when she got them for me. Marine
It was a
blue.
it was a long meeting, but I was very concerned when Peter Kapusek just all of a sudden started floating above.
I noticed that as well. Okay, before we take the motion to adjourn, I would just like to thank everyone for a great meeting. This was an extremely long, extremely complex meeting. I thought we had some excellent reports, a lot of excellent discussion and ideas. And as chairman, I just want to thank all of you for a great meeting and doing a great job for the town. Now I will entertain the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I second. Now move to roll call vote. Mike Landers?
Aye.
Eric Mitchell has had to leave the meeting. I vote aye. The motion passes unanimously and the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all. Merry Christmas. Merry
Well, a
Christmas.
good night.
Hey, Dave,
Yeah.
will you do me a favor? At some point, no rush. Will you give me a call? Do you have my number? Yeah, I gotta, nothing to do with this. It's a question on something else.
You got it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.